Okay, hello. Hello, good afternoon everybody. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Good afternoon. Okay, so there are actually a lot more people joining us via Zoom and Facebook Live right now, but thank you so much to our on-site attendees. We understand that classes have been suspended or have shifted to online. That's why we don't have that much on-site attendees. So welcome to another session of our Agriculture and Development Seminar Series, or the ADSS. And for this particular ADSS, we feature a paper published in the 20th anniversary issue of the Asian Journal of Agriculture and Development, or AJAD. And first, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of the authors of this paper. First, of course, we have our presenter, Ms. Maria Cristina Sison. Also here with us, Dr. Howdy Buis and Mr. Giancarlo Navacero. So if you have questions later, we have 3 people you can ask to later. Okay. Again, maraming salamat. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And for our on-site attendees, you have free printed copy of the AJAD later. And for those attending online, if you want to get a copy, of course, you can also download that through our AJAD website. And do we have more people coming in via Zoom? Okay. So we'll just let them come in, but maraming salamat po sa pagpunta. Thank you so much for joining us again. Sana handa na tayong makinig. How can we engage young people in food system transformation to address malnutrition in the Philippines? So this is the central theme of our ADSS this afternoon. So without further ado, allow me to briefly introduce our resource speaker. Ms. Sison is a registered nutritionist-dietitian and is currently serving as ex officio of the Philippine Stakeholders for Nutrition and Dietetics. She holds a degree in MS Applied Nutrition from the Institute of Human Nutrition and Food at CHE UPLB and was certified dietary manager and food protection professional in the US. She was president of PSND in 2023 to 2024 and served as adjunct assistant professor at the Institute of Human Nutrition and Food at College of Human Ecology in UP Los Baños, where she taught food systems and community nutrition field practicum. Currently, she is main proponent and implementer of the Youth for Agriculture Immersion Program for high school students, which aims to promote and engage them in agri and nutrition with a food systems approach. She serves as roundtable expert for the World Food Prize Foundation Global Youth Institute in 2024 and 2025, and consultant for the DHICA project Market-Driven Enhancement of Vegetable Value Chain in the Philippines. She participated in the EAT, or EAT, Action Dialogue for Healthcare Professionals convened by the Physicians Association for Nutrition, and EAT in preparation for the launch of its second iteration during the Stockholm Food Forum in October 2025. So she's going to be busy in October, so we're glad we're able to catch her this September. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our ADSS speaker, Ms. Maria Cristina Sison.
Good afternoon, and thank you to SEARCA for this opportunity to present our paper. Sorry. Let me just, yeah. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of my co-authors, Dr. Howdy Buis, who is an emeritus senior research fellow at IFPI and also a fellow here at SEARCA, and also Giancarlo Navacero, who is a assistant professor at UP Rural High School. So our paper will focus on 3 related issues, and these are how the youth can be encouraged to devote their careers to agriculture, and how do poor quality diets compromise the cognitive abilities of young people. Also, how can nutrition concerns be incorporated into agricultural policies. So for introduction, the Philippines Ambition Natin 2040, which I hope everyone is familiar with, describes how all Filipinos aspire and envision their life to be by 2040. And mainly, this is to be healthy and well-nourished and become productive citizens of the country so they can contribute to economic development. This is the quality of life the youth today should look forward to, no? And the food systems will have a major role in helping us attain this ambition natin 2040. So, however, the current food system has been impacted by shocks that have greatly affected food accessibility and availability and diet quality, especially of vulnerable groups, young children and young adults. The impact of these shocks on the food systems today will be a huge part of the lives of future generations. Unless the food system is made more resilient, then the aspirations of Ambisyon Natin 2040 will remain elusive, hindering the ability to achieve inclusive growth, eradicate poverty, and ensure the well-being of all Filipinos. Now, agriculture plays a crucial role in the country's economy, but more importantly, in sustaining the food supply. The Philippines has yet to reach the same level of economic growth and development achieved by other Asian countries, where agriculture played a major role in contributing to the household food security. Now, our youth today will be the future experts and leaders in agriculture and related disciplines, and will have an important role in ensuring that the quality of food that our agriculture sector is able to produce and impact nutrition, especially in reducing prevalences in stunting and meeting SDG and sustaining these targets by 2030 and beyond. However, agriculture is not appealing to the youth, and not many will pursue um, agriculture courses even if they are given an opportunity to go to the university. So even farming families discourage their children pursuing agriculture. And aside from this low appeal among the youth, our current farmers today, their average age is more than 57 years old. So medyo aging na, close to retirement na yung age ng ating mga farmers. So unless younger generations take on agriculture either as a profession or as a vocation, our food system is at risk of losing its human resource. So if that happens, do we rely on food manufacturers to supply our food? Unfortunately and ironically, our farmers and fisher folks are the poorest and are living below poverty threshold. So according to the National Nutrition Surveys of FNRI, farmers are also farming households are the most food insecure. Now, the nutrition situation in the Philippines reflects how well the food system is able to nourish the population. The World Bank report in 2021 and other studies classifies the Philippines as low income based on the country's prevalence of stunting, which is comparable to poor countries like Lao PDR, Bangladesh, and some countries in Africa. Our economic growth, while it seems we are making progress, our nutrition situation tells a different story. So why do we focus so much on stunting? So stunting is a result of chronic undernutrition and can lead or cause poor outcomes. It is associated with delayed child development, both physical and cognitive. When both physical and cognitive development are hampered due to poor diets, stunted children may fail to achieve his or her full potential, which impact productivity during their adult years, and which can then impact ability to earn, and they will most likely be at a higher risk in developing chronic diseases. Now, the high risk of developing chronic diseases may also be linked to low earnings that could limit their access to healthy diets. So stunting is largely a result of low income coupled with high food prices and is the primary driver of poor quality diets. Now, height for age, which are measurement or index to measure stunting, height for age of infants is also a reflection of the nutritional status of the mother. The effect of the diet or the lack of it starts to show at 12 to 23 months when introduction of food begins. With better quality diets among higher income groups, height for age among preschool age children seem to be much better than preschool children from lower income groups. And this trend seems to continue through different eras, no? Even if the preschoolers in the Bukidnon data, which was gathered in 1984 and 85, are a lot poorer than the national nutrition data from 2013. So most recent analysis of the 2023 national nutrition data have shown similar trends. Oops, sorry. Okay, so therefore, nutrition of mothers is critical, not just during pregnancy, but also during lactation period, especially when infants are highly dependent on breast milk from 0 to 6 months. After 6 months, the infants will need more than just breast milk for nourishment. And the first food together with breast milk is important for growth and development. The introduction of food that will meet the increasing nutritional requirements of the growing child will determine how well they will thrive, and income will be a major factor on how well families are able to incorporate nutritious food into the diet, especially during the first 1,000 days of life. We are making progress in reducing the prevalence of stunting, and it is important to sustain whatever progress we are making. I am not sure where to attribute this progress or this decline in stunting, but I always ask why was 2015 particularly special when it comes to stunting? So this is where we observe the highest stunting prevalence. So what happened then that impacted our nutrition situation? So I may get in trouble for saying this, but I think it's also due to the lack of impact evaluation, or really looking more deeply on the impact of our different interventions and programs to really determine or tie or tag which interventions or programs or policies are making an impact on prevalences and stunting. And who knows, maybe it was just the weather. We don't know, right? And then what interventions work to our benefit that led to the gradual reductions of stunting that is helping us reach our SDG targets in 2030. So whatever that is, that should be continued. However, we can look at our national data more deeply so that we can see what the data is telling us. And for now, based on how this analysis of the national nutrition data, which he does on his spare time, so improvements in diet has a lot to do with the reduction in prevalence in stunting. So although rice provides much of our energy or caloric needs, it is that one single food that contributes about 41% of our zinc intake and about 33% of our iron intake. Meats and fish contribute much of our vitamin A intake. And while fruits and vegetables contribute less than 20% of micronutrient intake. And this is coming from 45 different foods, 45 different vegetables. Because we eat so much of rice, adding more micronutrients such as vitamin A in golden rice has the potential to provide even more micronutrients in the diet. Improve micronutrient intake, especially among poor households, whose caloric requirements are mostly met with one single food, and that's rice. So this table presents how different income levels spend their money for food, and that across income level, you get more calories from rice for every peso spent. Vegetables are not good sources of calories. So you would have to spend more, you would have to eat more vegetables to get significant amount of calories. Now, the same with the bodybuilding foods or protein sources, which are also expensive sources of calories. You do get more calories from meat sources for every peso spent than vegetables because calories are mostly coming from fats in meat, which is double the calories per gram compared to carbohydrate sources. So it is also important to note among the bodybuilding foods, processed meats provided more calories per peso spent compared to green leafy and yellow vegetables. Among adolescents, pork liver contributes 25% of their vitamin A intake. Eggs and chicken liver are also main contributors to vitamin A intake for this age group. So I ask you, where would you rather get your vitamin A? From pork liver or golden rice? Okay. So I guess your doctors might not want you eating more pork liver. So income has positive effect on diet, and the poorest will most likely spend more and consume more rice than any other food. Micronutrient intake increases as income increases. With increased in income, diets improve with more protein sources providing vitamins and minerals. People will eat more meat if they have more money to spend. I think that's true for all of us. While vegetables and rice will have a steady portion across income groups. While Filipinos improve their micronutrient intake as their income increases, what does this mean in terms of healthy diets and a sustainable food system? So our stunting prevalence remains a problem in addition to the problem of obesity and overweight. So both stunting as a form of undernutrition and obesity and overweight as a form of overnutrition may eventually lead to poor cognitive development and non-communicable diseases. How are the nutritional guidelines and recommended diets reflected in the Filipino diet based on the analysis? Filipinos can get more calories for every peso spent from rice and even processed meats and protein sources, such as meat and fish, and micronutrient intake is mostly coming from these food items. But as nutritionists, what we recommend as healthy diets for good nutrition and health is to eat more vegetables. So this is what Pinggang Pinoy is trying to relay. This is the message of Pinggang Pinoy. And this is clearly stated in the nutritional guidelines for Filipinos. So the WHO recommends consumption of at least 400 grams of, or 5 portions of fruits and vegetables per day. And this includes root crops like cassava, sweet potatoes, and other starchy foods. More important, WHO recommends avoiding sources of fat coming from meats and dairy and fatty meat, as well as trans fats coming from processed foods. So based on the most recent National Nutrition Survey, vegetable consumption among Filipinos is only about 123 grams per day, while fruit consumption is only about 40 grams per day. So if you combine the two, it's still not enough to reach the recommended fruits and vegetable intake of 400 grams that is being recommended by WHO. And part of the low consumption of fruits and vegetables is cost because they are very expensive. So in the Philippines, the cost of recommended diet is 70 pesos per serving per day. So this is based on 2021 foreign exchange. So for a daily wage earner and a family of 5, for example, earning 500 pesos per day, recommended diets based on local dietary guidelines and the cost of food would be unattainable. With limited budget, households will spend more on rice and eggs as protein source and only 19% for vegetables. So this was also clearly, we saw this in one of our projects with with the Vegetable Center, World Vegetable Center, when we asked poor households during the pandemic with the absence of income due to restrictions, they were actually just spending on rice and eggs for protein sources. Now, another study, the World Food Program report in 2019, showed that although most households, 97% of households in their study, were able to afford an energy-only diet, which cost about 81 pesos to 121 pesos per person per day, depending on the region. The minimum wage of 210 to 444 pesos per day, also depending on region, was also not sufficient in allowing poor households or minimum wage earners to purchase or to have a nutritious diet. Kung energy only, okay. But if you want, a diet that has all the nutrients, micronutrients, then that's a different story. So the study results also showed that most households were unable to afford nutritious diet due to low income, and that low income and inability to purchase this nutritious diet was linked to prevalence of stunting. So our government, they spend a lot on social protection, like 4Ps. In fact, they get a big chunk of the national budget. And even based on this nutrition gap report of the World Food Program, 4Ps beneficiaries who get 1,400 pesos a month or 10 pesos a day, this is not enough for them to purchase or get, they also cannot afford a nutritious diet. Okay, so Filipinos prefer more meat, as we mentioned, especially with improved income. So how does our food preference and choices impact the environment, which eventually affect the sustainability of the food system? So animal-based foods, especially red meats, dairy, and farmed shrimp, are generally associated with the highest greenhouse gas emissions because of the amount of inputs that are needed to produce them. So fruits and vegetables, nuts, legumes, very low if we talk about plant-based diets. So the agriculture mindset is to increase yield, to have more supply of food, but providing nutritious food must be part of the agenda. Okay? Now, food security is the first of the 8-point socio-economic agenda in 2024. However, budget allocation for ensuring food security sets priorities for the National Rice Program, Rice Competitive Enhancement Fund, increased budget for corn and high-value crops. And what's in the high-value crops program? What are the crops that are included? It's mangoes, banana, coffee, cacao, and onion. Buti may onion and mango. Okay? While it is important to support our rice production, it is just as important to strengthen the production of food commodities that can provide the essential nutrients in the Filipino diet, such as fruits and vegetables, and legumes, to make them more available and affordable. But this remains to be a challenge due to the losses in harvest, typically from lack of proper post-harvest handling. So proper post-harvest handling does not only provide optimal yield and profitable income for the farmers, but it also ensures physical and nutritional quality of fruits and vegetables. So unfortunately, billions of pesos worth of fruits, such as mangoes, and some vegetables, like tomatoes and onions, both very important ingredients in Filipino dishes, are lost during post-harvest. Post-harvest losses are much higher with longer distance between farm to market, and these losses do not only translate in low supply, which influence the high cost of fruits and vegetables, and loss in income to farmers, but also losses in nutrients that could have been consumed and utilized by consumers to meet their nutritional requirements. So this is actually a study done by SEARCA. So post-harvest losses are not the only issues when it comes to supply. So another study by Gibson in 2012 estimated micronutrient deficiencies in the food supply based on the food balance sheet. So for the Philippines, they estimate that vitamin B2, vitamin A, calcium, iron, and zinc were not adequately available in the food supply based on the data from the food balance sheet. But as expected, we are okay in terms of energy supply. So vegetable and fruit consumption has been declining over time, and it is not just lacking in the diet, it is low in supply, thus affecting price. Thus, a strategy of raising non-staple food consumption, apart from improving household incomes, must be based on increased productivity of specific non-staple foods. It will open the possibility of lower prices, and together with nutrition education or behavior change, may convince Filipinos to change preferences to consume more fruits and vegetables. The lack of food sources with micronutrients such as iron, zinc, and vitamin A may be compensated by improving the mineral and vitamin density of staple crops such as rice through biofortification, which can be done by conventional breeding or advanced methods in genetic modification. So these high traits with high mineral and vitamin density may be bred or developed in other varieties that have good agronomic traits that are most acceptable to farmers. And this also will not affect the price, no, because it's already piggybacking on existing traits or acceptable traits. So when we start talking about transforming the food system, so different experts and sectors will see this transformation in different perspectives and contexts. So an economist will say, well, let's improve income, trade to make more food available and accessible. And then an environmental scientist will probably focus on climate change. A health expert will probably say, let's improve the health sector, etc. But in the end, this all boils down to food and nutrition security. So micronutrients in the diets of Filipinos are mostly coming from meats, fish, eggs, and even rice. Even poor households are able to consume the essential micronutrients even with low income, but are these nutrients coming from the food that we consider nutritious or what is being recommended in our nutritional guidelines? Can the Filipino diet sustain good health in terms of human health and the environment that can sustain the food system? Now, fruits and vegetables and other plant-based foods, including legumes and cereals, are the types of food associated with healthy diets. But cost of fruits and vegetables is the main reason why consumption is very low. Now, we can come up with policies today or amend our laws to transform the food system, to improve diets, or even make the right kinds of food more equally affordable and accessible across income groups. But that process will take decades, and it will be the youth who will be impacted from whatever transformation or even the lack of it that we make today. Now, the United Nations defines youth as the age group of 15 to 24 years old. It is important to note that in the life cycle, this is the reproductive age, and it is therefore important that this age group is able to consume a healthy diet. So for teenage girls who will become future mothers, Their nutritional status will greatly impact their future children, especially at birth. The time is now to educate our youth about how food is produced and how food production can provide a healthy diet and the importance of healthy diet on nutrition and well-being. Now, if we were to engage the youth, this quote from Dr. Javier expresses the need to change perception about agriculture. Aside from the folk songs that the negative view on agriculture is also embedded in our culture and education system. And this is coming from the experience of Assistant Professor Navacero, where, we tend to tell students who are not performing well to go home and plant kamote. Diba? That's a common saying. So while there is a cultural negative connotation or impression about planting and farming, even towards food crops that nourish us like sweet potato or kamote. Actually, yung sweet potato, the English version sounds better than kamote, di ba? Mas acceptable siya. Now, the agriculture sector also needs to change its mindset about its role in providing our food supply. While food security is a government priority, this may not necessarily translate to nutrition security. So in 2020, Professor Navacero and I, together with Dr. Ardales and their colleagues in UPRHS, were granted the SFRT funds, for research. And this is now a policy brief that was produced by SEARCA. It was implemented in 2020 by UP Rural High School, where we engaged schools, other schools within Laguna. But the engagement was very limited because this was the time when we had restrictions sa pandemic. And unfortunately, we were not able to engage students in person or with practical skills because we were very limited to implement the program via Facebook or virtually. So we conducted interviews, and from these interviews, students, parents, and teachers, so sila yung included sa baseline interview. We found out that parents were the most influential to students in selecting courses in the university. Parents may encourage their children to take up agriculture if scholarship was available, but that is also very competitive. Now, the current K-12 curriculum, agriculture and home economics, where human nutrition is usually covered, is under the Technical, Vocational, and Livelihood track, or TVL. So schools recognize that agriculture may have a better advantage in student enrollment if it were under the academic track, or STEM. Not all schools that offer TVL include agriculture, and even if it is offered, students tend to prefer information technology over agriculture. Now, the reality is not all students will be able to go to university, especially if their parents cannot provide the financial support and if they don't have access to scholarships. Now, the TVL track was put in place to allow students to acquire skills that will make them employable after senior high school. Now, if they are provided with both theoretical skills and practical skills in agriculture, students who opt to or are unable to go to university may venture into agriculture entrepreneurship, or what is popularly known as agripreneurship, which may which can be lucrative and profitable as other businesses or careers. Now, encouraging the youth into agripreneurship not only provides them a chance to earn, but also to contribute to the country's production of nutritious food. Now, some schools have plans to improve their agriculture courses by covering more topics such as crop and animal production, organic farming, as well as expanding land area for planting if necessary, and also converting practical skills or practical activities to home-based activities. However, schools are bound to follow DepEd and TESDA guidelines and regulations, which may not necessarily be accommodating to an expanded agriculture program. For example, modules may not be available, and national certification may not be granted to the school or student if the program is not covered by TESDA regulations. Another issue is the lack of teachers with proper background and expertise that are required to teach agriculture and nutrition. And they are forced to teach these subjects without proper training and facilities. So before the K to 12 curriculum was put in place, we had the basic education curriculum. And here we had practical courses such as agriculture that had equal importance as other academic subjects. And part of that practical courses or part of the agriculture course were practical training, especially in the secondary education. And this practical training integrated the principle of practice, the principle of association, and the principle of effect. Now, agriculture education institution played a key role in encouraging students to pursue agriculture. Now, I noticed that in UPLB, the Department of Ag Ed no longer exists. So UP Rural High School is one of the few science high schools today that still offers agriculture subjects under the K-12 curriculum. Its curriculum has evolved since the time it was established as a vocational school and a training laboratory for students taking up agriculture. These changes have also affected how agriculture was being offered. But it's important to note that during the transition to science-oriented curriculum, agriculture was taught as a science instead of just a vocation. Rural High School continues to offer agriculture as part of their academic track. So instead of STEM, they have STEAM. So agriculture is incorporated in the STEM academic track. Now, DepEd schools also may offer agriculture and fishery arts from grades 4 to 10. However, there are many issues in its delivery, such as lack of proper training for teachers, lack of facilities and materials, and limited time allotted for these courses. I think only 1 to 2 quarters per year. Now, the Asian Farmers Association for Sustainable Rural Development identifies 5 ways to promote agriculture among the youth. So first is policy advocacy, alliance building among farmer organizations, establish young farmers exchange programs, partnerships among farmers organizations, and research and publication. Now, Tagulayan sa Paaralan is a good avenue, no, to engage students in agriculture, and Gulayan sa Paaralan is already incorporated in the DepEd. It's actually their program. So this allows, promoting vegetable consumption among teenage students, and it is also useful in monitoring students' knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors towards agriculture, nutrition, and environment sustainability. Now, also to consider mobilizing LGUs, especially through the SK, LGUs for community gardens, school gardens, home gardens, to become part of their local development plan and also their local nutrition plans. Now, capacitating the youth in agriculture, especially the out-of-school youth, and through entrepreneurship, where they can sell their produce or even develop their own products for selling. So UP Rural High School continues to implement their youth program for agriculture among their students. Separately, for the past 2 years, we have been working with Maria Montessori Philippines and their students for our Youth for Agriculture Immersion Program, which allows the students to not only learn about vegetable production, but get a full farm-to-table experience with vegetables and livestock. With the support of the Department of Agriculture and JICA project, Market-Driven Enhancement of Vegetable Value Chain in the Philippines, or MV2C, students learn about the nutritional importance of vegetables, proper selection and handling of vegetables, and simple ways to prepare and cook vegetables. So this year, 4 students from our immersion program will participate in the Global Youth Institute in Des Moines this October. They also participated in the virtual GYI in June and are now considered Borlaug scholars. So through the MV2C project, they brought in chefs to teach our students proper selection and handling of vegetables, purchasing, marketing, and also cooking. So we had Chef Waya for one session, together with Chef Precious and also Chef OJ. So these are just pictures of our activities. So the students were engaged in, we were able to get them to do rice planting at Erie, and then vegetable planting at the farm villa, and then we took them to the market where they experience, interacting with vegetable vendors and picking vegetables to purchase, which they prepared for their dinner. So that's Chef OJ. And then 2 students extended their training under the mentorship of Howdy and Dr. Val Peder from Erie, where they were guided in doing research on projections on supply and demand of rice in the Philippines. So both students intend to take up agricultural economics. So our education system will play an important role in engaging youth in agriculture as well as nutrition. Nutrition in our education system is mostly focused on school-based feeding programs of the Department of Education. Now, while feeding programs have helped improve nutrition among underweight school children, it is just as important to incorporate nutrition education activities, nutrition and agriculture courses in the curriculum to improve nutrition and food literacy. So these are some points from the Global Education Monitoring Report of UNESCO. So formal and informal and non-formal education can influence individual, household, and community decisions around food production and consumption. Integration of food and nutrition education across subjects, school projects, garden-based farm-to-school lessons, and skill-based cooking classes. Now, evaluation of integrated school nutrition model, which included a bio-intensive school garden, nutrition education, and supplementary feeding, improved nutritional status of beneficiaries. So when our youth are educated about the food system, especially how food is produced, coupled with nutrition education, they should be able to demand for accessible and affordable nutritious food for a healthy diet. Now, that demand for nutritious foods allows them to conform with the nutritional guidelines that recommend consumption of fruits and vegetables to meet the required daily nutrient intake for the prevention of diseases. This demand for fruits and vegetables should be met with a strong and reliable supply chain from the farm to market and eventually to our dining tables. However, to increase vegetable and fruit consumption among Filipinos cannot be resolved by just improving the supply chain, but also making vegetables and other plant-based food sources more available and affordable. Change in behavior, change in food habits, and preference will be necessary. And the window of opportunity for these changes will be with the youth. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miss Cristina, for your presentation. So, lots of useful insights from your presentation for our attendees. We have lots of nutritionist, dietitian also in the audience. By the way, we already have over 75 online attendees. So, and on site, we have about around 15 to 20 people. So thank you so much for joining us. We now proceed to our open forum. I know there have been questions thrown during the pre-registration, and I would also like to read some of them. But if there's any question from our on-site participants, maybe we can have the first question from the on-site participants. Yung non-SEARCA. Maybe from this side. Doc Irene, you have any questions so far?
When you say youth, what age did that cover for your study?
Actually, the one with the UP Rural High School were senior high school. And the target of that project was grade 11. But I think we ended up including different levels because it was conducted online and the reach was wider. And we couldn't really engage, the schools in person. So it was more open. But now our program with the Montessori, we include the grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah.
Based on grade level. But PSA-wise, the definition is 15 to 30
Yeah.
years old.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So another question from one of our online participants. I think he or she is a member of a student organization. So what role can student orgs and school-based projects play in promoting nutrition awareness?
Oh, definitely big, no? Especially if you, there's so many programs existing already, even within the LGU levels. The Gulayan sa Paaralan is one program I think that is sometimes underutilized. So if you could, explore in your own communities, even here in the campus, in Los Baños itself, explore what are they doing in the Gulayan sa Paaralan? Do they need strengthening? Do they need help? That's one of the activities I think that you can tap into and volunteer. No? I think that's one of the things na medyo nagkukulang tayo, the sense of volunteerism. And I think that would be one of, as we stated earlier, the capacity of teachers to teach is kind of low. Medyo hindi strong ang skill sets of teachers who are being given the task to teach agriculture. And if you are an organization here in UPLB and you are an agriculture student, I think these are avenues that you can explore and help out, and even bring in more youth to your organization and be engaged in agriculture.
Thank you, Miss Christina. Actually, you did mention how student organizations can add value to the current nutrition programs more than the typical feeding programs. Normally, kapag mga one-shot events, no. So, Ed, you mentioned about low capacity of teachers because there was this one question from our online attendees with regards to offering basic nutrition as a subject to the basic curriculum. She's asking if is it still a good idea to teach basic nutrition to high school and elementary students?
I'll answer the question, but I will also pass that on to Carlo, who teaches high school. No? Okay. But for me personally, it may be a biased answer because I'm a nutritionist and I taught home economics. That was my first job. I think it is still very important to teach nutrition, whether it's a separate science. In fact, it should be a separate science, not just under home economics, because nutrition is not just a science, and you're not just learning about the biological use or physiological use of nutrition. You are also learning life skills, okay? How many students now actually cook their own food, okay? And that's, or even fry an egg, so it's not just about learning science. And I think that's one of my personal problems with our STEM. academic track, because we focus so much. We want our students to be scientifically inclined, high tech, but are we losing out on values formation as well as life skills? No? So that's my take on it. It's still very important. The younger, the better. And I think that I'm not sure if how prominent it exists now in the current curriculum. So I'll pass that on to
Okay,
Carlo.
yes, Carla.
Currently in the DepEd curriculum, the matatag, medyo kurot-kurot lang po. Just a pinch lang po yung uh, maybe sometimes it's just a 1 to 2 topic which is embedded in just 1 quarter in maybe just one grade level in the DepEd. In UP Rural High School, we teach it in a full-blown course where it's more holistic po yung approach, and by dedicating more time we can do more hands-on learning, and I agree with Ma'am Tina po that it should be taught because it's a basic life skill.
Being taught as a basic life skill. Same with agriculture in general,
Oh, yes.
agri
yeah,
and
yeah.
nutrition.
And they should come together. In fact, sa rural nga noon when I was teaching, it's
Yeah.
agriculture and home economics, and andun yung nutrition. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so there's also another question relevant to a school setting then from one of our online attendees. She's asking, I want to know if every school should hire a registered nutritionist-dietitian so that food in the canteen track nutritional status or even teach nutrition to students who will be, if, a registered nutritionist-dietitian monitoring and teaching nutrition.
This is not a biased answer, but pwede na rin. Pero for us, so we have the PRC, no? We're regulated by the Professional Regulatory Commission, and we need a license to become nutritionist dietitians. In fact, one of the requirements for any institution teaching nutrition, the requirement is a licensed dietitian, nutritionist dietitian. I am not sure how well that is being monitored, but I know that our board of nutritionist dietitians are actively trying to implement our policy that for any institution, even dito sa IHNF, because it's a nutrition institute, they are required to have license, no? So when it comes to school canteens, actually, again, going back to the ND law, we have such thing as the ND law, no? Parang medyo, we have to keep track of LGUs when it comes to nutrition programs, that it's being implemented, or may oversight, there's oversight by R&Ds, no? And then of course, pagdating sa school canteens, ideally, yes, and even hospitals, yes, dapat may oversight. There's an oversight of a licensed nutritionist dietitian.
Reaction from non-nutritionist dietitian? Okay, any further questions from our on-site attendees? Clarifications? Okay, I'll have one more from our pre-registration. The seminar highlighted the role of the youth in transforming food systems, but many young people, especially in rural or low-income areas, have limited resources and access to healthy food. What concrete strategies do you recommend to ensure that youth participation is not just symbolic, but truly impactful in addressing malnutrition?
Well, even the rural areas have schools, right? And we have public schools. And I always talk about the gulayan sa paaralan. And SEARCA is very much involved in the gulayan sa paaralan. If we could only strengthen the gulayan sa paaralan as a community garden. In fact, it was originally designed to support the school-based feeding program, no? Unfortunately, because nga of the lack of the capacity of schools, teachers, it's highly dependent on whether the teacher is, fond of planting vegetables, or if the principal is very supportive, no? So whether you're in the rural area, in a poor community, there will be a school that should have a gulayan sa paaralan. But I think the LGUs will also play an important role in yun nga, incorporating community gardens, um, or even container gardens among households. Now, um, the LGUs will be a very, community level, grassroots level. They would be the main implementer. And we've seen this in some nutrition sensitive interventions where like one mayor required all his, and this was in a GIDA area, required all the households to plant malunggay in front of their house, requirement yon. And then another mayor required na for every registration that you make in the municipio, you're required to you plant a fruit tree. So there are many nutrition sensitive programs that can be tapped and can be strengthened, no, locally. And whether you're in the rural area or I think you would just have to explore maraming opportunities doon.
Any final question? Okay, maybe yes, sir.
So in the United States, they have these 4-H clubs where the students compete for prizes at the county fair, that sort of thing. They do that sort of thing.
Actually, just the other day, a colleague of mine, si Dr. Samson of National Nutrition Council, reminded me of the 4-H club here in the Philippines, which was very active during the 80s and the 90s. And then because she brought that up, we started looking back, okay, what's a 4-H club doing now? Unfortunately, there's not much information. But I did find out that here in Los Baños, there's a local 4-H club. And these are one of the things that we really don't need to reinvent the wheel. We really don't need to come up with new programs or interventions because even youth programs, there are several youth programs around. And I think it's worth probably bringing people together and looking at how we can strengthen or make use of existing programs so that we can engage the youth more. So we don't have to, I think it's worth looking back at past programs like the 4-H Club.
Certainly, 4-H clubs. Yes, Doc Irene.
Share lang ako, when I was younger, no, when I was studying in Makiling, no, diba, I really loved the gardens that we had back then. We were taught how to plant certain crops. Unfortunately, it was not well planned because when harvest time comes, it's already the end of the school. No, so sometimes we will make pakas to Makiling during summer and then harvest what we had planted. I was thinking if only we saw what we planted, we reaped what we plant, we got to harvest what we planted. That would have made a greater impact for us.
Yes.
No, I was thinking, ganun din kaya yung ginagawa ngayon for gulayan sa paaralan. If the teachers do not know this kind of stuff, it will not transform to the students, and the students will end up just planting and not harvesting. And they miss a lot of that, no? And they will miss a lot if they do not harvest or do not eat what they planted. I have a Vietnamese neighbor right now who really plants organic vegetables, and she shares to me her harvest, and the pechay is really, really good. It's very sweet, it's very crunchy, but it has a lot of holes. But I don't mind that. But I get to appreciate the food better if I get to see it, if I get to harvest it, and I get to eat it. And I hope the gulayan sa paaralan will do that as well. No, huwag niyong kalimutan yung aspect na yun kasi it's very important.
Carlo, do you want to say something?
Similar po, nabanggit po ni Ma'am Tina, our youth engagement programs, our food systems approach po. In our programs, we shy away from very detailed, boring, long lectures. We focus on awareness and on the food systems as a whole and learning by doing. So nabanggit niyo po, ma'am, when you look back to your elementary days, high school days, ang naaalala po natin is the things we did outside the classroom. So that's what we are promoting in our youth programs. Aside from learning by doing, ginagawa po nila and mas natatandaan nila and mas na-engage sila, mas eventually, hopefully, they will be more appreciative and eventually take it as a career. But most importantly, they appreciate the food that they eat from end to end, from production up to waste disposal.
Yeah, just to add, and this is, SEARCA has been involved in the Gulayan sa Paaralan. In fact, I was never involved, but Dr. Africa took me to the schools where they did the pilot projects for incorporating the Gulayan sa Paaralan into the curriculum. So there's a lot of potential, no? And these are I think there were 11 schools that were very successful in implementing their Gulayan sa Paaralan. And one of the unique ways of incorporating the Gulayan sa Paaralan was, bringing the students, even if it's a math subject, bringing them out to the vegetable gardens, and then the math problems were based on their vegetables, like if you harvested 1 kilo and then you cooked half kilo, yung mga ganun ba? This is elementary level. And that was the first time I actually experienced eating carrots fresh from the soil. So when we visited one, there's a big difference with consuming vegetables that are freshly harvested compared to vegetables that have been in the market for some time. And I can say that, yeah, the carrots that they freshly harvested, they let us taste, it was very sweet. They tend to be a lot sweeter. And I think that's one of the appeal that we can provide to students when, especially, engaging them in agriculture, but also, giving them more preference to vegetables, because there's a big difference in flavor and taste
Okay.
and nutrients. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing as well, Doc Irene and Sir John. I think we still have room for some questions. One participant is asking, since it was mentioned that vegetables can provide all nutrients needed, especially carbs, are we also planning livestock or fish ponds in the schools in the future, especially schools with more space away from their rooms for more agricultural activities?
Carlo, you wanna? Oo. Oo. Yeah, why not? Kasi nga, ang agriculture naman is not just vegetables, right? And it's not just rice. Our engagement with Montessori is we actually have them cull chickens. They feed the chickens, they cull the chickens, and also they catch hito from the fish pond. If the resources are there, and that's one of the things I think that the schools need, no? And I focus on the schools because that's a good route for engaging the youth in agriculture. So if not just for, okay, we need the buildings, but it would also be good to have that open space to allow the schools to implement a bigger or a stronger agriculture program, whether it's incorporated in their curriculum as a major subject or as a vocation. I think that would be a good investment for our education system.
Okay, thank you. I think we can have some current events question. Curious lang ako. Because you did mention about the rights-based approach to food systems, access to healthy and nutritious food in the schools. There's a certain senator currently pushing for free breakfast or libreng almusal. So what are your thoughts on that?
Actually, there are so many organizations, individuals who want to do feeding programs. Okay, I've as a nutritionist, even locally here, I've been approached by different charity organizations. They want to do some form of feeding, but we have to realize also feeding programs have protocols. No, you just don't do a one-time feeding like today and then you expect change in weight or change in height or mawawala si stunting. It doesn't work that way. The feeding programs of the DepEd, to really show impact, that's being implemented for 120 days. Okay, and there are guidelines in what to feed, what to put in your recipes, what to cook. In fact, there is, I think, a move, I don't know if it's already been implemented, if to continue the feeding programs even during the summer break. Because ang nangyayari, when you do the feeding program during the school year, so the students will enter underweight sila, and then they are included in the feeding programs. After 120 days, their weight becomes normal, they're okay. And then when summer break comes, when there's no school, there's no feeding program, they're back to being underweight or undernourished. And then it's a whole new, another cycle, same student gets included in the feeding program. So fine, I mean, with any policy, I think many of our policies are good, they're sound, they're well designed, but it's always implementation. Okay, we have to make sure that it's implemented well, and then measure impact. Make sure what we are implementing actually makes a difference. No, and I think that's one of my frustrations with, when we look at the stunting data, especially if you look at the several years of data. What were the spikes? Like, bakit may spike 2015? Bakit bumababa? For now, we have the analysis of our data that how this doing, which helps, no? We know it's improvements in diet, but we need to be able to sustain whatever progress we are making now. So feeding programs, good, but make sure it's well designed. And another problem I have with policies and programs, when you look at the implementing rules and regulations, we're missing out on human resource. Okay, who's going to implement this? Who's going to police it? Who's going to keep track of it and monitor it?
Okay, I think that's a good end to our open forum. So maraming salamat, Miss Cristina. Now I think it's time for our online attendees and on-site attendees to share with us their thoughts, some insights from the presentation. If you have any further questions to Miss Cristina, you can drop your questions through that feedback form so we can share it with her. Just make sure that you indicate your email address so we can get back to you. So please scan the QR code or type in the bit.ly code ADSS-SEAR925. Okay, so while you're doing that, I would like to give our token of appreciation and our certificate to our resource speaker. I'd like to invite the Deputy Director for Administration of SEARCA. We have Associate Professor Joselito G. Florendo. So let me just read the citation. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Ms. Maria Cristina B. Sison for sharing her expertise as a speaker during the SEARCA ADSS titled Youth Engagement in Transforming the Food System to Address Malnutrition in the Philippines. Held on the 24th of September here at SEARCA Los Baños, Laguna, signed by our Center Director, Dr. Mercedita A. Sombilia. Okay, would also like to invite the co-authors for the photo opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Howdy and Mr. John Carlo. Okay, so thank you very much. So that concludes our ADSS. So see you again in our next ADSS in October. So we'll definitely make an announcement in celebration for the World Food Day. So maraming salamat po sa ating mga kasama sa ating Zoom and Facebook Live. Okay. So thank you very much to our over almost 80 participants via Zoom and Facebook Live. So for our on-site attendees, may we request a quick photo opportunity with our authors, speakers, and of course, would like to give our copies of the AJAD to our very maagang dumating na attendees. Oh, the editor of AJAD is also joining us online. We have Dr. Habito as well. Hello, sir. Magandang hapon po. Okay, may we request the staff, please?